Hello friends, welcome back to our channel. I hope you all are well and doing great. So today I'm back with another video to continue our UCAT test preparation. As you guys know, we have started our verbal reasoning practice test questions and we have completed our section 1 of verbal reasoning. So today now we're going to let's start our section 2 of verbal reasoning with the instructions. So you are presented with passages of text, each associated with 4 questions. There are 2 different question types in this subtest. A question or incomplete statement with 4 response options, where you are required to pick the most suitable response. A question where you must determine on the basis of the information in the passage whether a statement is true, false, or you can't tell. So now click the next button to proceed. So here we have our first question. Again in this section we have 44 questions and we are at the question number 1 out of 44. So again we have these passages which you can read first and then find out your answer, what they have asked in that statement. So, and you can save your time without reading this paragraph. You can read the statement and then the options, and then you just can pick some of the keywords from that statement and search it in that passages, and then you can find your sentence or statement from that passage, that is it true or false. So it will help you to save your time. It will not consume your time by reading all these passages. Okay, so without any delay, let's start our first question, which is public sector TV programs are produced with the health of child viewers in mind. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So here you can use this public sector TV programs as the keyword, or you can also use health of child as a keyword to search your answer in these passages. Okay, so let's see which one is the correct option. So here we have correct response is option C, which is can't tell. So option C is correct because it is stated that the results of new production and editing techniques are more noticeable in commercial television than in public sector TV. However, the passage does not state what the producer's intention is. They may produce TV programs with the health of child viewers in mind, but equally they may not. Only the result is commented on. So because of all this reason, all that statement that is given in the passage, we have the correct option is C, which is can't tell. So again we can read that statement that public sector TV programs are produced with the health of child viewers in mind. So its right option is can't tell. So next question we have again with the same passages. As I've told you already that each passage is associated with 4 questions. So it's a question number 2. TV programs that are fast and stimulating improve children's attention spans. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So here you can find your keywords like children's attention spans and some TV programs like this. So here we have correct response is option B, which is false. So option B is correct because the second paragraph states that fast-paced programs cause children to have a shorter attention span. Because of this, our option B, which is false, is incorrect. Is correct. Okay, now we have next question, which is question number 3. The brains of children under 2 can be damaged by watching videos and DVDs. So option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So here you can use these keywords like watching videos and DVDs and the brain of children as your keywords to find your answer from these passages. Okay, so here we don't see any keyword like DVDs, so let's see which one is the right option. So correct response is option A, which is true. Option A is correct because the first sentence in the passage states that children under the age of 2 should not watch screen entertainment at all because it can have a damaging effect on early brain development. So yeah, this is the reason because of which option A is correct. The statement that is given is true, which is the brains of children under 2 can be damaged by watching videos and DVDs. Okay, now let's move towards the next question, which is question number 4. Children with autism watch more television than other children. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So its correct response is C, which is can't tell. Option C is correct because although paragraph 2 states that some very recent research has made a connection between autism and television viewing, we do not know if children with autism watch more television than other children. The correct answer is can't tell, as we are not told the detail of how the study implicates television viewing. So that's why we can't tell that the statement which is given above, that children with autism watch more television than other children, is true or not. So that's why we can't tell it. Its right option is option C. Next question is that the clock was built in the town square to tell rail users the time. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So correct response is B, which is false. Option B is correct because the clock was built as a war memorial to commemorate local people killed in the First World War. That's why the correct option is option B, which is false. So that's why the statement that is given above is false. The clock was built in the town square to tell rail users the time. Okay, now next question we have. The clock on its plinth is the town's war memorial. Option A, true. Option B, false. And option C, can't tell. Okay, so let's see which one is the correct option. So here we have correct response is A, which is true. So option A is correct because the first paragraph states most towns have a war memorial to remember fallen service men and women. A town has a memorial clock and it commemorates local people killed in the First World War. All their names are listed on the plinth. Also, paragraph 2 states, it is where the town's annual Remembrance Day service is held. So because of these two reasons, we have a right option, which is option A, which is true, that the clock on its plinth is the town's war memorial. So this one is the true statement. Okay, now next we have question number 7 with the same passages given. One of the paintings showing the historic clock in the market square with people scurrying by is by L.S. Lowry. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So let's see which option is correct. So here we have correct response is option C, which is can't tell. Option C is correct because while paragraph 2 states that the clock is part of the town's history, having been featured in many photographs and paintings. No additional information is given about the paintings. So that's why we have correct option is option C, which is can't tell. So we can't tell anything about the statement that is given here. One of the paintings showing the historic clock in the market square, the people scurrying by, is by L.S. Lowry. Okay, so let's move towards the next question. The suggested revolving digital clock would be powered by a tape of a renewable energy. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So correct response is option C, A, which is true. Option A is correct because paragraph 3 states an alternative proposal is to have a digital clock on revolving screens. An electronics firm has offered to pay for such a new clock powered by solar energy. So that's why option A is the correct. Means the statement which is the suggested revolving digital clock would be powered by a tape of a renewable energy is true. So this statement which is given is true. Okay. Next question we have is question number 9. That Brunelleschi studied the architecture of Roman ruins. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So here we have an explanation that correct response is option A, which is true. And option A is correct because the first paragraph explains that Brunelleschi investigated the physical fabric and design of Roman ruins. So that's the reason again we have, because of which the statement that Brunelleschi studied the architecture of Roman ruins is true. Okay, next question is question number 10. The only churches Brunelleschi designed and built were in Florence. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. Correct response is C, which is can't tell. So option C is correct because the passage mentions that Brunelleschi completed Florence's cathedral but does not mention if Florence was the only place where he designed and built churches. So he doesn't mention. That's because we can't tell that it is the only place or not. That's why we have a right option is option C, which is can't tell. Next we have that the crane invented by Brunelleschi was operated using animal power. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So correct response is option A, which is true. Option A is correct because the third paragraph mentions that Brunelleschi's hoist used the power of a single ox. Because of this, option A is true. So the statement that is given above, that the crane invented by Brunelleschi was operated using animal power, is true. Okay, so next we have that Brunelleschi was a self-taught architect. Option A, true. Option B, false. Option C, can't tell. So here you can use the self-taught architect as your keyword to find your answer from this passage. And that was he a self-taught one or not? So option C is correct, which is can't tell. It is correct because although the first paragraph mentions that Brunelleschi studied literature and mathematics, it does not mention if he later studied architecture or if he was self-taught. So there is no statement about this, so that's why we can't tell that he was a self-taught architect or not. So option C is the correct option. Okay, next we have question number 13. People criticized Columbus' plan to find a western route to Asia because they thought the option A, earth was flat. Option B, voyage was too dangerous. Option C, earth was too small. Option D, voyage was under-resourced. So correct response is option D. It is correct because the end of the first paragraph states that people believed he had predicted too small a globe and would run out of supplies. So that's why option D is correct, which is voyage was under resourced. Next we have Columbus set off on his voyage assuming that option A, Asia was on the other side of the Atlantic. Option B, the earth was a sphere. Option C, the earth was flat. Option D, he did not have enough supplies. So correct response is option A. It is correct because the first sentence in paragraph 1 states that Columbus was attempting to travel west from Europe to Asia. And the final sentence in paragraph 1 states that he was traveling across the Atlantic to Asia. The passage gives no information on whether Columbus believed the earth was a sphere or flat. It also states that other people believed that he would run out of supplies. Note that Columbus assumed this. So these are the reasons because of which we have the correct option is option A, which is Asia was on the other side of the Atlantic. So Columbus set off on his voyage assuming that Asia was on the other side of the Atlantic. Next we have that modern supporters of a flat earth theory. Option A, do not accept current scientific observations. Option B, are all driven by religious belief. Option C, support the US government. Option D, form one coherent group. So here we have these passages, and you can find your answer by using some keyword from the given statement. Okay, so the correct response is option A, because the third paragraph says, remarkable as it may seem in the light of flights to the moon, there are people today who believe that the earth is flat. Therefore, these people reject current scientific observations. Option B is incorrect, as only some flat earthers claim religious justification. And option C is incorrect, because some of them believe that the US government is taking part in a conspiracy. Option D is incorrect, because there is no reference to coherence or otherwise of groups. So now you can see that why the option A is correct and why the other options are incorrect. So here we have option A, which is do not accept current scientific observation, is the right option. 19th century myth about medieval flat earth belief arose because option A, not many people in the 19th century were Christians. Option B, people believed the medieval Christian church was oppressive. Option C, people believed the medieval period was progressive. Option D, people believed the ancient Greeks were backward. So these are some reasons. And here we have again the same passage that we have in the last question. So you guys can take a look at these paragraphs also. Okay, so here we have option B is correct response. It is correct because the second paragraph states that the idea that medieval people thought the earth was flat appears to have spread in the late 19th century as a criticism of the medieval Christian church, which has often been blamed for restricting intellectual growth. There is no discussion about the numbers of Christians or to the effect that ancient Greeks were backwards. Progress is discussed in contrast to the medieval period. It is not used to describe that period. So that's why we have option B, which is people believe the medieval Christian church was oppressive, is the correct option. Next question we have, that is question number 18, that which of these statements, sorry, question number 17, that which of these statements is best supported by the passage? Option A, the two London theatres allowed by the Licensing Act were both in the West End. Option B, the King of England ascended the throne in 1660 was a supporter of theatre. Option C, the Lord Chamberlain was appointed because he was an expert in the writing of plays. Option D, the terms of the Licensing Act remained in force unaltered until the 20th century. So option B is correct because it is supported in paragraph 1. In 1660, drama was legalized once more. It also goes on to say that the censorship of plays was a result of royal sponsorship, suggesting the King of England in 1660 was a supporter of theatre. So we have option B, that the King of England ascended the throne in 1660 was a supporter of theatre is the correct option. So here we have our next question. Based on the passage, each of these statements is true except option A, plays were often used as a way of criticizing government actions. Option B, the reigning king in 1737 was not popular with all of his subjects. Option C, the Licensing Act reduced the number of theatres allowed in London. Option D, legal censorship of plays in England lasted for over 200 years. So here you can take a look at these paragraphs. Like this, and find out your right answer. Okay, so let's see which one is the correct option. So here we have option C is correct. So option C is correct because paragraph 1 refers to two theatres in London in 1660. But there is no mention of the number of theatres in London in 1737, which is in the paragraph 2 or 3. So that's why we have option C is the correct option, that the Licensing Act reduced the number of theatres allowed in London. Next question is that it was easier for people in the north of England to see plays in the 1790s compared to the 1660s, because option A, better transport made it easier for them to get to London theatres. Option B, censorship had been relaxed so that more plays were being written. Option C, authors who criticized the government were no longer allowed to write plays. Option D, it was legally possible to open theatres outside London for the first time. So here we have correct response. It's option D, because paragraph 4 states after 1788 magistrates could authorize local theatres. Many new provincial theatres were built, but London theatres were still restricted to two. So the option D, that it was legally possible to open theatres outside London for the first time, is the correct option. Next we have question number 20, which is using information in the passage, it can be inferred that option A, criticism of the government in the 1730s was considered to be more of a problem than it was in the 1660s. Option B, the main reason the king sponsored theatres after 1660 was because he wanted to make a financial profit. Option C, the Lord Chamberlain's office was set up by theatre managers who wished to control the work of playwrights. Option D, many authors enjoyed the freedom the Licensing Act gave them to write plays which were critical of politics. Again, we have the same passages from the last questions. So option A is correct because the king controlled criticism by sponsorship of theatres in 1660. This one is from paragraph 1. But in the 1730s, the government found it necessary to take legislative and punitive action to reduce or control criticism. No indication is given of why the king sponsored theatres in paragraph 1 other than control. So that's why we have the option A, which is criticism of the government in the 1730s was considered to be more of a problem than it was in the 1660s is the correct option. Using information in the passage, it can be inferred that strict settlement was option a discovery made accidentally by a bridgeman. Option B, a device to avoid paying land and property taxes. Option C, only of practical use to wealthy landowners. Option D, unpopular with members of the legal profession. So here we have now these passages. You guys can take a look and use your keywords to find your answers from these passages. Okay, so let's see which one is correct. So here we have option C is correct because the settlement was to protect landowners. Throughout history, wealthy landowners have wanted to leave their estates to their heirs. And landowners used the screen for 3 centuries. The other options are contradicted in the passage. Bridgeman invented the scheme. It was a device to avoid fines and it was quickly adopted by the legal profession. Okay, so here we have correct response in option C, only of practical use to wealthy landowners. This one is the correct option. The next we have, which of these statements is not supported by information contained in the passage? Option A, Earth could not always be forced to renew a strict settlement. Option B, no one knew who the final heir to a strict settlement would be. Option C, Orlando Bridgeman was the first landowner to use the strict settlement. Option D, sometimes it might be necessary to replace trustees who died. So here we have these again same passages, and option C is correct because Orlando Bridgeman invented the scheme to protect royalist estates, but there is no evidence to support that he was the first landowner to use it. The other options supported because paragraph 4 discusses the implications of failing to renew their final heir might not have yet been born. And paragraph 3 explains the scheme worked by vesting ownership in trustees for hundreds of years. So that's why we have correct option is option C, which is Orlando Bridgman was the first landowner to use the strict settlement. Okay, next we have question number 23, which is a conclusion that can be drawn from the passage is that the strict settlement. Option A ensured that each of a man's children shared his property. Option B protected the inheritance of sons more than daughters. Option C was disliked by lawyers who thought it cost too much. Option D was only used by royalists to avoid paying fines. So here we have these 4 questions, and we can find these answers by using keywords from these passages. Okay, so here we have option B is correct because paragraph 3 explains that the land dwelt on an unspecified and as yet unborn male heir, which also explains why A is incorrect. It was quickly adopted by the legal profession, and there is no reference in the text to them disliking it, which eliminates C, and it was used by lawyers and landowners as the normal method to transfer land between generations, which does not support D. So here we have option B is the correct one, which is protected the inheritance of sons more than daughters. A conclusion that can be drawn from the passage is that the strict settlement. Option A ensured that each of a man's children shared his property. Option B protected the inheritance of sons more than daughters. Option C was disliked by lawyers who thought it cost too much. Option D was only used by royalists to avoid paying fines. So these are the 4 options we have. So let's see which one is the correct option. Option B is correct because paragraph 3 explains that the land devolved on an unspecified and as yet unborn male heir, which also explains why A is incorrect. It was quickly adopted by the legal profession and there is no reference in the text to them disliking it, which eliminates C, and it was used by lawyers and landowners as a normal method to transfer land between generations. It does not support D. So that's why we have option B, which is protected the inheritance of sons more than daughters is the correct option. Okay, next we have question number 24. Which of these statements is supported by information contained in the passage? Option A, the code of chancery was replaced during the Civil War. Option B, many heirs depended on their fathers for spending money. Option C, Lando Bridgman was a lawyer in the Court of Chancery. Option D, a strict settlement normally lasted for several generations. So the correct option is B, because paragraph 4 states that their allowance was often their only source of income. Option A and C are incorrect because there is no reference to the Code of Chancery being replaced at all, or that Bridgman was a lawyer. Option D is incorrect because the passage states that a strict settlement only lasts a single lifetime and had to be renewed. So here we have option B is the correct option, that many here depended on their fathers for spending money is the correct option. Okay, next we have that according to the passage, the records relating to the 1662 Herd Act are now primarily of interest to people researching. Option A, forms of taxation. Option B, family history. Option C, local geography. Option D, church history. So now here we have these passages to find out our answers for that statement which is given to us. So option B is correct because the paragraph 3 says that such lists of names are invaluable for genealogical research. The passage does not suggest any direct link between the herd tax records and research into taxation, geography, or church history. So that's why we have option B, which is family history, is the correct option. Okay, the next we have question number 26. Between 1662 when it started and 1689 when it was discontinued, which of these collectors can be judged to have been the most effective? Option A, receivers. Option B, commissioners. Option C, farmers. Option D, sheriffs. So option B is correct because paragraph 3 tells us that in the early days there were lists of people in areas who still owed the tax. Paragraph 4 tells us that at first the tax was collected by sheriffs, then by receivers, then by farmers, and eventually by commissioners who in 1689 raised a record to 16,000 pounds. Clearly, the duty would not have been transferred away from them if the achievements or performance of sheriffs, receivers, and farmers have been considered satisfactory. So the option B, that is commissioners, is the right option. Next question, that is question number 27, is which of the following types of information were given in both 1662 Herd Act records and also the 1801 census? Option A, ages and deaths. Option B, property values. Option C, names and addresses. Option D, births and marriages. So again we have the same questions for same passages for these questions also. So let's see which one is the correct. Here we have option C is correct because paragraph 1 says there was no official census in Britain until 1801. The census listed all family members, their ages, occupations, and addresses, as well as baptism, marriages, and deaths. However, earlier records, such as those of the 1662 Herd Tax, also provide useful information about the population and where they lived. So appears in the census but not the herd tax records. B can be deduced from herd tax records but not the census. And D can be derived from census records but not those relating to the herd tax. So here we have option C, names and addresses is the correct. I think this is all we have for today. I hope you guys understand each and every question. If you still have any confusion, you can ask me in the comment section. So we'll be back with another video to continue our questions